All right, we back at it, y'all. So now, turn this thing on. I got everything I need out of that meeting right now. All right, so we're talking about how we go about. We're talking about the manufactured homes and stuff like that. I'm seeing a lot of people. I was going to buy some paint at Sherman-Williams, and I'm seeing a bunch of people, man. I'm seeing a bunch of people that's now talking about adjust it here. I'm seeing a bunch of people that's talking about scaling down, going to rural areas and things of that nature, getting their own food together. Excuse me, my allergies they're a little better than before. But, and see, that's what makes this channel a little bit different than just a normal tech channel with somebody just going on about hardware and software. I don't really give a damn about all that shit, to be honest. I look at tech as a means to make a bag and to improve my life. I really don't give a damn about the intricacies and how cool it is. I used to do that. I don't care about that shit. Because if you can't make anything financial and tangible out of it, it means nothing. You don't want to be like some of these. Okay. There's folks that I met, grown men, that sit around and all they do is sit around and talk about video games and shit. Nothing else. I've been in environments like that. It's sickening. Nothing about family legacy, nothing about nothing. Just Grand Theft Auto, that's it. When I was younger, I was interested in the intricacies. So how does it work and stuff like that. Some of that's kind of interesting. But I'm like, how can I use this? How could this, it's a tool. That's it. It's simply a tool. I don't care about how cool it is. So if you came here for how cool something is, that ain't it. I'm like, okay, if you could find a property, a lot of places, and I tell you, the remote thing is acting real weird, but if you could find some property where you're kind of out the way, and when S hits the fan, and you could still work and feed your family, there you go. And what I'm saying is, every time I go into these Home Depots, these offices, it's brothers, and it's some white guys too, especially them. They be the main ones. Yeah, man, I'm selling my property. I'm about to get out. People ain't just doing this just to do it. They see what's coming and what's going on. And so I did a little research myself, and I said, okay, instead of being amongst the association, like I tell people, especially young folks, don't mess with no townhome, bro. You gonna pay the same thing right now. Interest is 7%. When I got my house, it was 3%. So what I was saying earlier was that if you need to be somewhere, if you get into an environment, you get a position, don't feel like you got to kiss a bunch of behind to get higher up. Get those 4 people and they'll direct you to wherever you need to be about who's who and who to avoid, because they know everybody. And those people a lot of times tend to have a lot of the respect. The shoe shiner, some of the janitors, but the coffee people, they make a lot of them executives and higher directors coffee. Just those 4 people is all you need in that organization. If you want to be able to maneuver, because you know why? They are a surveyor of personalities. Well, DP, what do you mean by a surveyor of personalities? They understand how to deal with multiple personalities, and they deal with multiple personalities on a regular basis because they're pretty much the front line. Also, the security guard. That's a 5th person I just gave you. The security guard. when you walk in some of those buildings, a lot of times you see them brothers and sisters and they be security guards. They know who's who because the top level people know them at first hand. So I've seen it with my own eyes. A lot of them high level execs, $1 million execs and stuff like that, their level of respect for a lot of the security guys in the front, they know their name firsthand because they see them when they come and they see them when they leave. And they know that that security guard is going to be a layer of protection if something goes down in that building. So they trust those people with their lives. I'm telling you, they trust those people with their lives. Right? So, but anyway, getting into my Blue Cross story, there was little, what I call cubby holes and stuff like that, but they were bigger and they had phones in them. When I was in Egan doing, it wasn't my first Windows 7 migration. It might have been like my second or third. I might have had, that first one was with a manufacturing company in Columbia Heights. And then I might have did some little one-off ones downtown. Let me see where's that? I'm just checking this little meeting or whatever the case may be. Arthritis, whatever. So there's, I might pause for this. Let me see what that. Hold on, let me pause. All right, I was just checking to see. They had some local that I might have had to deal with or whatever the case may be. So I'm going to Blue Cross, right? This was around 2013. I think I did a story about this before, but I'm going to do another one. I started off with one agency. They were supposed to pay more than the first. But sometimes what happens with a lot of these vendors, in which I call recruitment agencies, they are the vendors for the large corporation. So I can't remember what agency it was, Apex. So Apex Staffing at the time, I interviewed and signed on to one agency to do the contract, to do the migration at Blue Cross. So now they ended up, I signed a whole contract with these agencies. And what ended up happening was a couple weeks later, when I was getting ready to start, somehow Blue Cross must have renegotiated and they didn't want to deal with that agency no more. So I just got a random call from Apex Staffing. Hey, you're going to be doing something. What's Iowa, Davenport, Quad Cities. A lot of stuff go down in the Quad Cities. I just happened to see that in the meeting. Okay, so now, Apex Staffing calls me. Hey, you're getting ready to start a Windows 7 migration contract. I'm like, yeah, you know, I signed on for this. I think it was Intuitive. I don't remember what it was. So they had all these details about me and the kind. And I'm like, I never signed on. Oh, Blue Cross isn't dealing with them no more. You're with us. And I said, well, what about the rate? So the rate was a little lesser than what they were supposed to get at the last one. And I basically told them, I said, well, I didn't sign nothing with y'all. You know, you still had to go through them to get onboarded and stuff like that. But they said, well, you know, you've already been hired on. You know, they want you. But it's just going to be a little cheaper. And I'm like, so sometimes they play those type of games. I said, well, I always go ahead. I don't know how much. It was like in his 20s or something like that. It wasn't, I know it wasn't 25, but it was enough where I felt I was straight around that time. And y'all got to keep in mind, I'm still without a degree. So I got in this game with no degree around that time. So I go in there and it's like a compound. It's a fortress. If you've ever been out there in Egan, it's like a compound. It's like Thomson Reuters almost. So there's a lot of little spaces where you could kind of just move and groove and stuff. But a lot of the work we did in the basement. So the first day we get on, this dude jumps up. You had all these dudes that had bachelors and degrees and all this kind of stuff, so they're real pompous and arrogant and like, yeah, I got my degree, and this, that was a whole little style. And I come in there, and he says, "Oh, gather up. This is the senior engineer." So the senior engineer jumps up and says, "Look, any Apple Mac users, raise your hand." And they raised their hands proudly. They probably thought they was going to get some props. He said, "We ain't doing no Apple products in here. And I really don't give a damn what you know. I don't care what you learned in school." He's just laying the law down. He said, "Man, we do things a certain way. We have a certain process. Follow that process." He said, "Everything else you learned before now," he said, "whether it's school," he said, "the hell with your degree, the hell with your previous experiences. We don't really give a damn if you're Apple computer, if you're Apple Mac people, or this, that, and the third. We don't give a damn. This is a Windows shop. And if you don't like it, hit the door." It was just cut close. Real cut close up front dude. Wasn't no hiding about how he felt or nothing. And so I said, I kind of like him a little bit. Cause there ain't gonna be no passive aggressive with him. Everybody dropping off. I'm just gonna. Yeah, ain't gonna be no passive aggression with this dude. Ain't gonna be none of that. None. It ain't gonna be no passive aggressive with this dude. So a couple of the guys, they was offended because they thought this was going to be a different, they thought that they was going to be able to come in the game. Now, mind you, these guys ain't got that experience, and they haven't been on Windows 7 migration before. I could tell by the way they were acting. So I'm hearing the murmur, and it's this Somali brother behind me. "Man, I didn't know it was going to be like this, man." And then it's, a couple white guys. So it's a few people that they said, "Man, I ain't doing it." For whatever it was. I guess their feelings must have got hurt or whatever, because I think that degree hit them. Because some of them came in there like, "Yeah, I got my degree and this, that, and the third." And they, we all contractors. We all like, when you look at the chessboard, we're like the pawns. But these dudes coming in as if like they the horse, or if they the, what I'm saying? They the upper pieces. That's what they're doing. I'm just gonna keep deleting this until they get ready to send me a ticket. So that's what they're doing. So now, check this out. Now we start learning the process. Took us maybe a week at the most, if that. They had one dude that he just does nothing but imaging. This was the SCCM Zero Touch. Plug it in, image it. I didn't really do it. I imaged, but that wasn't my whole thing. My thing was logging in, moving their files over. So they were having SCCM problems from the start. Just problem after problem after problem, because they didn't want to hire any packaging engineers. They wanted their local people that didn't know what the hell they were doing. They really didn't know what they were doing. They needed some real SCCM engineers. So something happened where BitLocker wasn't installed. That's a major HIPAA violation. Like we talking about HIPAA data and all kind of stuff. Like, so BitLocker wasn't installed on some of the machines. Something was supposed to be packaged with the image. So we had to find that desktop or something like that. And a lot of dudes, they were taking it real personal with this dude. And the dude was going off. I ain't gonna lie. He was really going off. And what ended up happening was he was looking for something. He threw a keyboard. And the keyboard, like, he just got a no-look pass and threw the keyboard. Threw a keyboard. It went past and it hit, I don't know, he threw a keyboard somewhere and it went past me. If it would have hit me, I would have went straight to HR. I'm good. I want 200 grand. Straight up. This is 200 grand. Oh, it was an accident. Well, let me get that bread, Blue Cross. And I don't really do the lawsuit thing, but that's assault. Even if it's an accident, that's assault. I need 200. I need 300. I need 200-300 for that, because that's on company property. Now on the street, if somebody would do something like that, I give them 2 pieces of the biscuit and keep on my way. But in corporate, I need 200 for that. I need 200 for that. So somebody was thinking the same thing. Like, somebody was like, man, I wish that keyboard hit me. I'm like, you would have had 200. Yeah, you would have had 200. That's what you would have had. And so they like, damn, man, I wish that keyboard would. And it ain't got to hit you hard. It could have just hit you. That's assault. From a major company? Oh no, they got to pay you. They got to pay you for that. You call 911 right. Hey, I need a police officer right here. I've been assaulted at work. Folks were sitting there, were huddled up like, man, I hope he throws another keyboard. I told him, I said, you want 200? You never have to work here again. So I'm sitting there, cause y'all gotta understand, when we was coming up in our 20s and younger, or, you know, not so much in our 20s, it was a little less, but we used to put these up. We used to put them 2 pieces in the biscuit up, and we ain't never get paid for it. So if I'm gonna have a fight and get 200 to pay, that's a fight. You know, so anyway, he's mad, he's throwing keyboards, he's trying to find it. And a lot of the dudes, because of the systems were down, they just kind of be sitting around. I never did that. What I did was I stayed on the floor, and there was a lead, and he kind of put me as like the second in charge kind of lead, like not on purpose. Hold on, let me log in here. All right. Who's in this meeting? Well, like I say, I ain't gonna worry about it. I'll give him to the stack. Okay, so look. So I'm just deploying machines, going from floor to floor, deploying the machines. Because once you get your machine that's assigned to you, you just move the data over and then have them log in. And then what they call the day one, they wear construction suits or construction whatever. What they do is they walk around. They're called day one people. Was it second shift or first? It was first shift. So I deploy a couple of my computers and I head off to my little hub. See, he just didn't like people sitting around. Around this time, this was, I think Facebook was a thing. They'd be sitting around on Facebook, and a lot of people were looking for jobs. Everybody knew they were looking for jobs because a lot of people left and some folks eventually got laid off. So what I ended up doing is I kept deploying machine after machine after machine after machine, and my name kind of got around to where they're like, okay, DP's just working. I didn't say nothing. I didn't discuss nothing. I didn't give a damn. Around that time, even politics. Most young brothers in our age, we were not as politically aware. Like the first time I voted for Barack, the first time, that was the last. I wasn't going to get involved in that again. But we fell into that black president BS. We got into that. So I guess I could do that one today. He could take it or I could take it. So that's a rush. So I'll deal with that later. So now I'm deploying. I might do some work and I'm still taking calls. I'm still taking a bunch of calls. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I don't know where this thing's going. We had got word that SCCM was just going to hell. And eventually they weren't deploying computers no more. They had to repackage stuff, and there was some real problems going on. So one day I went down to order my lunch. And when I went to order my lunch, I had my credit card out. And I used to always get like the salad or something like that. Hold on, back to the political thing. Okay, so now we weren't as politically, we around that time, eggs wasn't $10. You see what I'm saying? We weren't dealing with the same inflation. You know, our grandparents and people and our parents didn't have to deal with what we deal with now. We didn't have to, they didn't have to deal with an agenda that they push on your children. They didn't have to deal with a house, $350,000 that should really be a $200,000 house. They didn't have to really deal with that. They were able to retire at the plant or wherever they have to and get pension and all these kind of things. So they could basically just vote for some BS and just die in the sun. They didn't have to deal with what we're dealing with right now. So around that time, we weren't as politically aware. We just go and just show up at the polls just for the sake of somebody showing you and using all that old civil rights bullshit. Well, your ancestors died. Not now where we're like, okay, we need to have something or everybody's just going to equally suffer and be uncomfortable. So this was around 2013 when I was at Blue Cross. So around that time, we didn't discuss politics at work. That started coming later. You hear stuff, but we didn't discuss that. And it was always something that, I was told that that's something you really don't be discussing at work like that. But we didn't discuss that because we didn't give a damn. So now, where now you have a lot of environments where everybody's whining. The bad guys in. Everyone wants to whine. And we're like, okay, we've been dealing with this 400 years. I don't give a damn. You just getting a taste of what we've been dealing with for 400 years. We don't give a damn. The freedmen don't care. We're like, whatever. Because we're going to have to deal with it. We're going to have to deal with what we've been dealing with anyway. So everybody's whining and complaining. Oh, everyone's whining. So, like I said, we weren't talking about that. That wasn't something. So now, I'm deploying. And I get ready to swipe my credit card to get my salad or whatever I was eating. And somebody done took my credit card. My reflexes, I was getting ready to punch somebody. Like, I thought somebody was playing with me. And there was nobody that I got cool with enough. There was this one brother that worked there. He smelled like a Virginia antelope armpit and ass. Bro smelled horrible. And he had a Becky too. He was extra happy and overly joyous about his Becky. And I said, oh, she a nasty broad too. This brother came in. He was one of them Pokemon, sit around playing video games, not take a shower type of dudes. It's real. He's fat and funky. And I didn't really rock with him like that. He tried to get me to get a ride one time because I'm getting ready to hop in my Marquis around the time. Hey, man, you going down? I'm like, man, bro, I'm going the other way. Because I don't respect nobody like that to come to work like that. The bro came to work like that. Always bragging about his Becky. And coming to work smelling nasty as hell. Like he ain't showered at all. And I said, man, y'all some nasty. So I didn't want to let him get in my car. That ain't off code. I didn't want to let him get in my car. He wanted to get a ride. And I'm like, nah. You know what I'm saying? I got to go the other way, bro. You ain't going to funk up my car. You ain't going to Dr. Funkenstein my car. That man come in there smelling like he was funky. He couldn't compete with George Clinton. He had the funk. And he come to work like that. So I really didn't rock with him that much. There was really nobody that I really could. There was this Russian dude that I used to talk to. He's real swole. I think he got in trouble or something like that. I think he stole some stuff or something like that. But I mean, I used to kind of talk to him. And he used to, why do you Americans always say good morning when you don't care? You know, he used to, I don't know, he's big. He was like one of them, you remember when the Rocky fought? He was like, let's go to the bar. Let's go have a bar fight. You know, I mean, he was like that. He was kind of aggressive and stuff like that. So he wanted me to go to the bar with him. He said, let's go to the bar and somebody talks out of line, I punch him. So this is big Russian dude. Big Russian dude. Didn't smile a lot. He had a little, you know, he looked kind of like the dude in Creed. You know what I'm saying? He kind of looked like him. So he was on the project. So it get to a point they lay off some of the people gets left. So I had a trip scheduled for Puerto Rico, and I'm sitting on the beach, and that was already scheduled. So you know I'd already and it was a good time for me to schedule. So I booked the trip to Puerto Rico. I'm sitting on the beach, I'm lit, and they leave a voicemail on my phone. This was the lead guy, Ken. They laid off half of the staff. Now, I also got another voicemail because I had applied for Travelers. My life was starting to kind of go up. Around this time, and remember, like I told you about like the back doors, I had to cut some of my homies off because I was starting to go up here, and I couldn't, not everybody can't go. So because they just don't got the ambition you got, and it's not like I had nothing anyway. I didn't have a lot, but I had enough to keep going, and so now at the Travelers insurance contract, I was making 25. That was second shift. I had got the background check passed. I'm looking at the email while I'm sitting on the beach. I'm sipping on rum. Was watching the ocean. First time I ever seen the ocean in my life, in like the ocean, like real ocean. And I'm lit. I'm drunk. And I'm sitting there listening to this voicemail. They laid off half the staff. And looking at the email of my background check passing for Travelers. I always tell people, Travelers insurance, help desk is one of the worst jobs. They got the best help desk. Travelers insurance has the best help desk. They got mandatory breaks, mandatory hour lunch, 2 mandatory 15s, mandatory, which means you must take them. You know how most help desks, they be playing around, keep you on the phone, on the man, listen. You got to take those breaks. Mandatory 1 hour lunch, mandatory 2 15s. 8 to 4. And you can stay on the phone as long as you need. You're doing all, and so that was good. I was there a little while afterwards, but that was around 2015. That was after my mom passed. I bounced around a lot of different places because I wasn't grieving right. And I just had no patience. So what ended up happening was, come back from Puerto Rico. I might have been at Blue Cross maybe another week or, I don't know. And I went over to Travelers. And I took that position because I was only at Blue Cross for a couple months. I felt like I was going to get laid off either. They probably would have kept me, but shit. $7 increase, $6-7 increase or whatever. No, I'm good. I'm not gonna stay. Why would I stay? I'd be stupid to stay. Now they had their SCCM pretty much good, and Travelers was cool. I met a lot of good dudes there, and that's how I learned about Game of Thrones. So that's my in detail Blue Cross in HD story time. But what I will do is I want to talk a little bit more about when I went to Travelers, what I was kind of doing. I had bought my old school in like 2012. So I had my old school and I had my marquee. So I was still living on Lake Street on Minnehaha. So, I had my marquee, my 05. That gets me to work, no problems. Mind you, going into that Blue Cross, that started not too long from leaving that managed service company that I was talking about. That dude was giving me a hard time. So I didn't look for perm no more. I just said, I'm just going to ride the contracts. I'm going to ride the Windows 7 contracts, and I'm going to do those. So I started doing that. And I just did that for a number of years. Okay. Cynthia. Hold on, let me see. How do you get out of here? I'm trying to figure out how to... Well, I don't know. I'll deal with that later. So, when I started working at Travelers, it seemed like I always had money. Because I was making $25 an hour around that time. This is around the time, I think my mom was still alive. Yep. Travelers was it 20? It was 2013. So Travelers was, I think maybe April 2013 or something like that. Maybe. About April 2013. So around that time, I think September, I don't know when it was, but I sprayed my time machine. I had sprayed my time machine. So that was like my secondary car. I was going to bring it to work one day, but I never did. But I used to just, drive from Minneapolis to 94. I would drive to Minneapolis down 94, park. They didn't charge us for parking. Okay, so they got done with that. So yeah, if I could stay in this little cubby hole for hours and hours at a time, because it's too noisy elsewhere. And that's why I say about visibility, like at Travelers, getting back to that, not Travelers. Travelers had a couple too, but Blue Cross had a lot of little duck off spots. So I used to kind of go in there. Sometimes I talk to the recruiter, there'd be a phone. Your cell phone works sporadically. And remember, this is the first time I had a smartphone. Now, I did in Burnsville in 2011, I had an iPhone. So I guess you consider that a smartphone. But that's a corporate phone. So I listen to music, but I ain't really do too much with that phone. That was a work phone. That was like an on-call phone. I don't even know why they had... I didn't really work... I never worked remote. So I don't know why they gave me a corporate phone. There was really no point for me to have one. But... when I was at Blue Cross, I got into those little sheds. That's not the term, but that's what I call it when I'm in now. In these little sheds. And these rooms would be a lot bigger. And they would be soundproof even more. And they'd all have phones. So I would just get on the phone if I needed to talk to somebody or whatever. I didn't really talk to recruiters because around that time I thought that, maybe, and And I'm trying to figure out how I even took the interview. I think I must have just called in one day and just came in a little later at Blue Cross or something like that, because it got to a point where there was just no more work. You just kind of get to be sitting up there. But I'd find something to do. I'd go over there and start working with the imaging guy. He was still imaging. He was told to keep on imaging machines. So I started working with him in imaging. They created a position for that dude. He was a short white guy that had some military experience. He was young, maybe a little younger than me, but I couldn't tell because he was so short. But they had one dude that was a lead, and he had a suit. And if you talk about a snake skin oilman, a snake oil salesman, I remember this dude because he used to always be around all the other leads and directors and stuff, and he's following around like a little puppy, and he didn't know how to do none of his job. They eventually got rid of him, but he stayed around for a while. He was a lead. He didn't know how to do anything. And I can't remember that dude's name. I'm trying to even remember how he looks. I just know he used to wear a suit. So he put that facade on for a minute. He was one of the leads. We had like four leads. The one that I was dealing with was Ken. He was with the deployment. He used to work at some company out in Venice Heights called HB Fuller or some company. So he gave me a good review. But remember, when I was at AIG, I ended up back over at Blue Cross for 3 days, and I was dealing with that race soldier in the basement. Remember, I signed on to be a part of the Office 365 help desk. I just wanted that experience. And they threw me in the basement doing desktop support, saying, we see that you're fit for this. And I said, that wasn't what I agreed to. So I just started taking calls, going to different places, and I just basically he was like, well, we gonna show you this one time. Don't ask no more questions after this, that, and it was a real venomous environment. So I went immediately to just call another recruiter back, like, I'm about to get out of here. I was kind of pissed off because I wanted to be at that service desk because I'm just dealing with 365, and they didn't want to allow that. They put me in the basement, and I said that wasn't the agreement. So I went back to AIG like the next week. Got my lead job back literally within a week. I called the PMs. I called the project managers. That's another person that y'all might want to know. The PMs. If you get good with a PM, because they're very stressed out. And most PMs a lot of times are jerks, but they're very stressed. You get in good with the PMs. That's an additional person for you to know in an environment, in a corporate environment. Get in good with the project managers. They know everybody. They know everything because they manage the whole damn project. So that's my story time, y'all. My podcast equipment is going to be back up at some point in time. So we'll figure it out, y'all. Peace.